Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 30, I think. What a milestone. Episodes 30 of of Get the Flick Out of Here. And I was just thinking it's only fitting that there is a 0 in the number of this episode because that is the rating we would both give to a film called
Spoiler alert.
I think they'll be able to talk to figure it out.
You think they'd be able to do that on their own?
I'm Alex Pawlowski, and Kate's with me, as always. Kate, this week, I have decided to fashion the battery-operated string of lights that I wear for December very tightly around my throat, as though I am fashioning a noose for myself, because it has never been more pray for my own Deathcember than it is today. I thought after last week in the Lindsay Lohan debacle that we weren't going to get much worse. I think we may be reviewing the worst movie ever made.
Yeah, people say it's The Room. I was entertained by The Room for the wrong reasons. This is significantly worse, but also
this movie was ostensibly made by professionals, which you cannot say about The Room.
Ron Howard's brother is in it.
And you don't get much more professional than Ron Howard's brother.
So a couple things. One, it's just nice to be back to true form. Like, we really liked Marcel the Shell. We really liked the Weird Al movie. It just feels good to get back into the wheelhouse of taking something down. At night, it feels good to like just bulk up, to hulk up into that, Alex. It feels good to show our muscles, our Santa with muscles.
Santa with muscles. By the way, I also got a brand new T-shirt. It's that wonderful refrain from Christmas Vacation. It says, "Can I refill your eggnog? Get you something to eat? Drive you out to the middle of nowhere? Leave you for dead?" Which is what I'd like to do to everybody who had a hand in making this film.
Alex, think of the kids, though.
No. Even Mila Kunis, who is in this film at maybe 12 years old and really creepy. It's really creepy and like a weird, like uncanny valley thing to see Mila Kunis as a child, as a real child.
She was pretty good though in it. I felt
she was the best actor in the whole film. Are you kidding me?
How dare you say that about Ron Howard's brother?
Kate, I was like, because I watched this movie several days ago, and I tried to put it out of my brain immediately.
Of course.
So I went online. I Googled Santa with muscles synopsis, and the one that is on Wikipedia has a glaring error about the final detail of the movie, which we'll talk about. But it's also short, and I wanted like a blow by blow. A lot of these things on Wikipedia are like 2,000 words to like tell you every detail. I didn't want to miss anything.
Of course,
no one on the internet has synopsized this movie. It came out 1996. The internet has been around since then. No one has thought, you know what, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna do it, because why would they? Because this movie.
So I received a DM from you about this movie, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Santa with muscles," and you were like, "You knew this existed?" And I'm pretty sure the way I found out about it, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this, but I think I found out about Santa with muscles because I think Liv Morgan put out a tweet like, "I need a horror movie to watch around Halloween last year," and MJF responded with Santa with muscles.
It is a horror movie.
And it is a horror movie.
It is a horror movie.
So that is why I found out about Santa with muscles, and I was like, what the heck is this? And I knew it involved Hulk Hogan. It had to. Oh. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, okay. I don't even have to see this to know what this is. But then here we are a year later, blessed to be getting paid to talk about Santa with muscles.
Although we should have negotiated double for this.
I think, between having to actually watch it,
Right.
that's time and a half right there, and then the penalty of having to talk about it should probably have been double pay. So Christmas bonus to us. I'm self-awarding it. No. But Alex, this movie was a movie that happened.
I wouldn't even categorize it as such.
From the perspective of like it was something that was filmed.
I mean, technically,
it was inarguably filmed. That's the nicest thing we can say about it.
Yeah.
And Mila Kunis is pretty good. 12-year-old Mila Kunis crushed it.
As the second most important child out of 3 that live in an orphanage, she was pretty good. Actually, third most important. Really.
Yeah, kind of the third, I was going to say.
Yeah, actually, the least important child who lives in an orphanage out of 3. So here we go. The thing starts with this little girl writing a letter to Santa.
Dear
and
Santa.
I was like, here's the thing. I thought have you ever done like on these weird oh, by the way, this movie is free. If you would like to watch it, please spare yourself. But if you would like to watch it, it's free on Tubi.
Free on Tubi. Don't even need to create a login. No. God bless.
Free on Tubi. But if you put Santa, just Santa, into the search bar, there are hundreds of movies on Tubi with Santa in the title, and this does not appear. This does not appear in the first 3 pages. You have to dig for this.
Do we know what Santa with Muscles did at the box office, or was this a straight to DVD vehicle?
I don't know.
I'm gonna Google it because I want to know.
You should. If this movie came out also, which is kind of funny too, if this movie came out in December of 1996, does that not post date Hulk Hogan joining the NWO? So among the children who watched wrestling in 1996, he would have been viewed by them as the biggest villain in wrestling. Because the older kids and the adults loved the NWO, but the kids hated them. Especially Hulk Hogan, because he turned his back on the WCW to join the Outsiders. And you're presenting a few months later a Christmas movie starring him as Santa. I can't imagine this would reach the target audience they had hoped for.
So this is funny. I actually put out a tweet the other day that was like, what were the most heartbreaking heel turns for you? And so many of them were Hogan. Like so many of them were Hogan. And so the people who said that would have been the people that they were trying to get to see this movie. He does kind of start as a heel, and then he has a nice little babyface turn.
That's true. But anyway, the girl is writing a Christmas, and it was one of those things. Anyway, the reason I said this, why I brought up the whole Tubi thing, is that occasionally, with really obscure titles on these lower streaming services, the wrong file will be loaded to the wrong thing. So like if you click on it, you're clicking to the wrong file because they put it out, they just did the database is wrong. So I was concerned I was watching the wrong Christmas movie because the first 4 minutes are this little girl narrating, who I've never seen before, narrating her Christmas letter to Santa that she wants somebody to help with the orphanage she lives or something.
Well, no, she writes the letter about the mad scientist who's doing Mr. Frost.
There you go.
And I was like, I
didn't know there was a mad scientist in this movie.
Which, by the way, after having watched so much of Schlocktober, I was like, wrong gimmick, bro. This. This felt so Halloweenish.
Right.
Which was just wrong. I will also let you
So
know that the Santa Claus with Tim Allen came out in 1994. So this was like probably the next great Santa follow-up movie.
yeah, sure. When
I
did
don't
Jingle All
know
the
if
Way
it
come out?
was. Oh,
98. I'm not
I'm
sure.
not gonna make you watch that.
No,
We
you're
got
not.
too much other stuff to get
We
through.
just no. I already did one Arnold movie. You're not gonna make me do another Arnold comedy. Does he give birth in this one too? We see, speaking of Arnold, we see Hulk Hogan in a parody of the scene in Commando where Colonel John Matrix infiltrates a drug lord's mansion by systematically killing all of the guards. It is a parody of that with Hulk Hogan wearing a wig. The character's not wearing a wig. Hulk Hogan, I suppose, like the character of Blake Thorne, couldn't be bald because he'd be too vain for that. So he's wearing a very obvious toupee, and they've trimmed his trademark mustache down so it's very much more businesslike. And he's wearing battle fatigues, and he fights an army of gardeners, and there's a chef and a chauffeur, and he fights them all. Not like lethally or anything. He just punches them in the face or throws something at them. One of them gets tossed over a balcony, but it's not a very far fall. One of the little gardeners can do karate. But anyway, after a while, he's fought to a stalemate where he's standing in the middle and they're all surrounding him. One of them has a weed whacker pressed very close to his face. And then he's like, all right, time. And 4 minutes and something say, 4 minutes. 4 minutes. You call that exercise? And all these guys are like, oh, thank you, sir. Whatever. And then he's got a butler there with him. I don't know what the butler's name is.
But he also says, because they're overselling, let's call it what it is. They're Shawn Michaels him.
They're Shawn Michaelsing him.
They're Shawn Michaelsing him. He goes, you guys just want your Christmas bonus. And I was like, immediately I can't buy into this movie because I can't buy Hulk Hogan not wanting his ego stroked. There's no no way. There's no way. Sorry to derail us so early, but this did a whopping $220,000 at the box office.
Nice. Kind of a miscalculation there, I guess, from the PR people. Yeah. So this is Blake Thorne. Blake Thorne is a mega millionaire whose thing is like protein shakes and health food and exercise equipment. There was a very big thing in the mid 90s called Body by Jake. There was a guy, Italian fella, big muscles, Body by Jake. He had a whole line of health food and electronic equipment and videos, a line of videos you could buy. And I'm really surprised they didn't go all the way and just have it Body by Blake. I'm very surprised because that's basically what they've turned this guy into.
That would involve being
clever. Anyway, yes. But so there's some kind of charity ball he's supposed to go to, or no, they want to have the charity ball at his mansion,
of course,
and he doesn't want to because he has like several hundred rules, and he quizzes his staff. Rule number 91, and they're like, and he remembers it, but I don't remember what the rules are, but they're all very selfish rules.
Of course. Because he's a selfish guy. Because he's a businessman. And he fights his staff and then quizzes them. So definitely sounds like a great dude to work for.
Yep. So anyway, he's to tell the charity ball they're not allowed to come to my house and have a charity ball unless they pay me money or something. He's very Scrooge-ish. And like all the other Scrooges, over the past. He likes to have dirt bike paintball fights. That's
Of course.
this is basic thing. Um, eh, so after his morning of beating up his gardeners and then eating a very healthy egg white omelet,
I'm sure that's
on the
exactly how Mark Cuban starts his days.
yeah on the veranda, he puts on his little trademark. It's a red little do-rag, and he's got his fatigues on, and he's doing a little like, all right, everybody, you are my paintball buddies, I guess. Let's all do paintball. And they drive off at a very high rate of speed, and he's in a Jeep with one other guy with him, and there's a bunch of dirt bikes following, and they drive off into the desert. This is, by the way, this takes place in California, in a fake town called Lakeville, because there are no lakes in California. And but it's a small town with, like, they keep talking about it's a small town or whatever. There's a radio ad about Lakeville. Come to beautiful Lakeville. But as they're driving the desert road to get from wherever the hell his mansion is to Lakeville, one of the dirt bikes jumps off a blind hill and lands on the hood of a sheriff's deputy car. The sheriff's deputy is played by Clint Howard, Ron Howard's brother. You'd know him if you saw him.
Yeah.
He's got that face. But he is sitting in his car playing with his radar gun. Pew 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 pew. And then when a guy lands on his hood of his car and keeps moving, he fumbles for the radio and yells something at dispatch about, "Oh my God, I'm under attack. There's a bunch of terrorists." And he peels out after them. So there is one sheriff's deputy, then joined by a couple other sheriff's deputy cars in a high-speed chase with millionaire Blake Thorne, who has his picture plastered all over the ubiquitous products that he makes and
richest
markets
guy in
everywhere.
10 states, we find out later.
Richest guy in 10 states. Yep. Not at all a celebrity. This is a theme I'm finding among our movies.
Amnesia
And celebrities not being recognized by people.
I was so glad we did these back to back just for this reason.
Me too.
Dream.
So this millionaire doesn't pull over for the cops and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm a millionaire. You know me. I'm Blake Thorne. Do you know who I am?" He doesn't do one of those. "I'll pay for the damages to your sheriff's vehicle. Oh, by the way, I just made a call to my lawyer. I just bought the sheriff's department." He doesn't do one of those.
As a tax write-off.
He's yelling to the guy in the passenger seat, because Hulk Hogan is driving. Blake Thorne is driving. He says, "Blake's rule number 402. They never surrender," says the guy. So they they don't slow down.
And I want to emphasize too that the big crime here is speeding. Like, he's not trying
speeding and I suppose reckless driving with vandalism to a cop car, perhaps. But,
sure, but my point being, like, he was not trying to outrun the cops because he murdered someone.
No,
like,
this is not a white Bronco situation.
No. This is just him not wanting to pull over, even though he could pay his way out of whatever.
He says, "This, I'm having too much fun. Outrunning the cops in a high-speed chase through a residential neighborhood is fun for me." But
great message
he says,
for the kids.
He said, but they see a sign saying Lakeville Mall this way, meet Santa this way, and it's like, "Oh, Lakeville, great! I grew up there," he says in a very weird way to the camera, which is supposed to be the guy in the passenger seat. And then he bails out of the moving vehicle and runs into the mall parking lot, where the cops aren't following him. It's a very leisurely jog. Like, he's just just doing one of these things. I don't know, man. It was so odd.
More respect for John Howard or Ron Howard's brother, John Howard. That's probably his name. I forgot that there's like this also overarching stereotype of cops in the like in the early 90s too, that they're all just big old goofballs who can't do their jobs.
Well, it does feel like the entirety of writing rooms in the 90s are just like a Dukes of Hazzard. Just we watched a lot of Dukes of Hazzard in our teens, and it's 20 years later, and now we're writing. So all cops are bumbling goofballs.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. All them Duke boys did it again. He runs into the thing, and by the way, at the same time, whoever is actually the mall Santa at the Lakeville Mall is missing. We don't know. We never find out what happened to that guy.
We really
that guy never
don't.
Shows up for work. He may have suffered a horrible heart attack. Like
he might have gotten kidnapped. Somebody.
We have no idea what happened to him.
Oh, you know what he did? He went back to the North Pole.
That's true. Screw this Lakeville place. I'm out. There's a whole room of full-grown adult men in elf costumes playing poker with cash. Waiting around for Santa to show up because nothing can happen until Santa shows up. And the mall PR lady is very frustrated that there's no Santa there because there's a whole line of people at this very small town's very expansive mall who are waiting to see Santa, as though it is like a celebrity autograph signing.
Yeah,
you know, like.
Also, just like no regard for the fact that the guy's missing. To your point, too, like there's a human being playing Santa that's missing, which you don't want to tell the kids. No. But like she should be concerned about that,
right?
Like she should be like, "Hey, I filed a missing persons report. I don't know where it went."
So she says to the entire. First we see Don Stark, who played the neighbor dad in that '70s show. That's his big claim to fame, I believe. His character is Lenny, and Lenny is on the phone with what would appear to be his bookie, right? Like, yes. I'll get the money for you at the end of the week. I promise. I know I'm late, but I'll get the money for you. Don't worry about it. I'll get the money. Why this New York mobster goon? Maybe he's in witness protection. I don't know why he's in this very small desert community in Los Angeles, but Lenny is.
What we need is Mobster Elf and Santa with Muscles too. We find out what happened to the original Santa, and it was that he took him out. We need a sequel, is what I'm saying.
There you go. So it would appear he's on the phone to his bookie, but he's not. He's on the phone to a guy in a lab coat. It's like, "You will get us that money, Leonard." He's British and
William Regal apparently.
Basically, he's a very skinny, angular
villain.
But he's like, "You will get us that money, Leonard. Don't you think you could welsh on us?" And I'm like, why is the guy in the lab coat your bookie? Is he like running a side business outside of the lab? Like, what's going on? We find out in a little bit, but it doesn't make any more sense.
I can't tell you how jarring it was to have the presence of a mad scientist who is also such a reroute from the actual villain. I was like, this is Schlocktober. This is not Christmas season. Mad scientists are a Halloween Dr. Frankenstein situation or a non-holiday entity. It didn't feel in place for Christmas.
No. So Lenny needs money. He needs cash.
He does.
To pay back his bookie, who's also a scientist. They never say why he owes this person money.
No, ever. And we'll talk about it later, but the mad science part of this, also a derailment from kind of the plot of the movie.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We'll get there, but.
Right. Anyway, So the PR lady for the mall says, any of you elves, the first one to bring me Santa gets $50. Now I looked it up. $50 in 1996 is like $55. So I don't understand why that was like this major motive. Does that all you owe?
Oh,
Is that
when bookies are breathing down your neck, it's usually over $55.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like, by the way, that was a lie. I didn't actually look it up. I was trying to make a joke because there's no reason.
It's not like that big of a disparity.
No, like he's like, this is gonna make or break me if I get this $50.
Also, just huge appreciation for hot mall PR lady.
Yeah.
Sometimes blondes in public relations are very attractive.
Yeah.
But straight out of like the wrestling heel playbook almost. I was like
so Lenny decides he's gonna go out and try and find this Santa so he can get $50. Wait a minute. Where does he find the Santa costume? Does he mug the actual Santa? Did he find it in the locker room of the place? He finds a costume. I forget, honestly, I don't know what happened. How Hulk Hogan is going through the back hallways of this mall, and he sees that there are cops there looking for him. So he ducks into a room and he comes out wearing a Santa costume. And they go, "Oh, hey, hello, Santa," say the sheriff's deputies, as though it is actually Santa. "Hey, did you see a big guy walking through here wearing battle fatigues? He's on the run." He's like, "No, officer, of course not. If I see him, I'll definitely point him out to you," says Hulk Hogan. And then
I just was looking back at my notes. There's just like a green room where Santa would normally change, and it's just hanging there with other elf costumes. They really don't ever at any point explain what happens to.
So that guy never showed up to work. That guy's dead. I don't know what happened to him, but like he's probably a sweet old man. Probably a sweet old man who
I want to believe he was
for Lakeland.
He was double booked and he got a better Santa gig elsewhere.
Sure, no, it's got to happen. We see this man and his son. I don't know how they made it through security. Some locked door was propped open and they walked into the back just like, "Hey, we got backstage passes to meet Santa." And like, "Hey, Santa, there you are. I got my list. I wanted to show it to you." And it's like, "Hey, kid, shut up," or something. "Get a job," or whatever, says the mean Blake Thorne. And as he's walking away, he has forgot, like when he changed into the Santa costume, he didn't. Part of his army fatigues are hanging out the back of his pants.
And it's not like he threw the Santa costume on over his fatigues. And so,
but the problem with that is that later, that's not what happened. I'll say it when we get to it. The sheriff's guys see that it's hanging out the back, and they run after him slowly, as slow as Hulk Hogan is willing to run for this picture.
Of course.
And then they come around the corner, and he's missing. Where did he go? He can't have gone that fast, that far. Look how slow he was running. He apparently ducked and went over and is hanging on the in the incinerator chute like you have in a mall.
Of course.
And easily big enough for somebody to fall down and be murdered. Like it's not like it's a very small incinerator chute. It's a very large hole. But he ends up falling all the way down this incinerator chute, but not landing in the incinerator somehow. But he lands and hits his head, and he lands right at the feet of Lenny, who is just sitting in the basement of this mall, looking hard for Santa because he needs that $50 so bad. So he notices that sticking out of the costume of this Santa is some battle fatigue material. So he just reaches down and yanks on it, and it's just a piece of material. It's not actually attached to any garment. It's just like, it's as though hey, before I put on the Santa suit, I should take off my fatigues jacket, cut about a square foot of it, and stuff it in the back of my pants, just to make sure the sheriff's deputies can identify me, the guy who's been running from them. That's how ridiculous this is. But also, Lenny reaches down and finds the wallet.
The wallet of who, Alex?
Blake Thorne, the richest man in 10 states, who also has, I cannot stress this enough, a Blockbuster card. Now, it is the 90s. But I can't imagine Blake Thorne doing his own video shopping.
No, he
I don't know
probably
why
has
Blake
a
Thorne's
theater
got a
in
video
his
card.
giant mansion.
Or he'd send one of his 12 gardeners to go pick up the latest Hulk Hogan
one
picture.
of his 12 gardeners / combat buddies / quiz contestants.
Right, there you go. So Lenny wakes him up. Or no, he does wake up. Lenny's waking him up. He wakes up. And then he goes, where am I? Who am I? Hey, you're Santa Claus. Look at you. Of course you're Santa Claus. Like, I'm Santa Claus, says Hulk Hogan. So Lenny's going to steal Blake Thorne's wallet and use the debit cards to go to an ATM and unload all the money. So he's going to be, I'm rich. I'm so rich. His little dance. But then Blake Thorne wakes up and he convinces him very easily, you're Santa. I'm Santa? Yeah, come on up. I think there's got to be a happy medium of amnesia behavior between last week. I don't know my name, but I know that I'm supposed to be a horrible person to all service employees. Or this week, what are you? Who am I? What are these clothes? What are clothes? There's got to be like something in the middle. But
if you also don't know who you are, wouldn't the first thing you do be to be like, hey, where's my ID? Like, I feel like,
but I feel like Blake Thorne, when he has his amnesia, wouldn't know what ID is because he's so out of it.
Yeah, but at no point does he really check for it.
No, not like, because days go by and he gets better and better, but never thinks about checking his own ID. And also,
I also like, I can buy a little bit. There's a man in an elf costume dressed as an elf. You're dressed as Santa. You probably would be like going along with it for a minute. So I can kind of buy that. But the inconsistencies between last week's portrayal of amnesia and this week's portrayal of amnesia are...
Lenny doesn't convince him that he's a regular guy dressed as Santa. Lenny, with zero effort, convinces him he is the actual Santa Claus.
Touché.
Your name is Kris Kringle. Like, that is, like, he doesn't say that, but that's basically what he says. So hey, let's go. Everybody's waiting for you. It's a big deal. Come on upstairs. Let's show everybody the real Santa Claus. And he goes up there, and everyone cheers for him. There's literally thousands of people at this mall to see this mall's Santa.
Which makes you really wonder, what was OG Santa doing to drum up this much support?
I don't know. PR lady begrudgingly pays Lenny the $50. She's like, hey, come on. And she goes, and she gives $50.
All right.
So Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, Blake Thorne, sitting there talking to kids about their Christmas list is supposed to be like one of the funniest parts of this movie. You can tell. It's in no way is it that. So he's like, what do you want for Christmas? I don't know. And then he starts listing toys he can think of. And that's it. What a joke. Hey. But at the same time, there is a lady in a bad Christmas sweater sitting at a booth there's taking donations to save the orphanage at the old church.
There sure is.
And two hoodlums who are supposed to be 17 and are absolutely in their 40s are like, hey, let's steal this giant circle with $12 bills and some pennies in it. We're gonna be rolling in it. Come on. And so one guy picks it up and tries to stuff it under his shirt, but ends up dropping it and it breaks open. And there's literally, again, $12 bills and maybe $1.50 in pennies.
Probably, yeah, like a
get
button.
the money and go. Let's go. We got to get out of here. It's grand theft. Clear plastic bubble with $12 in it.
It's like real petty theft. Like that's the kind of thing that it's like, it's $12. There's a button in it. There's a paper clip. There's pennies. There's a rubber band. Like that's one of those things where people just take whatever's a butterscotch candy, probably. And none of the thousands of adults that are waiting to meet Santa pick up on this. Only a little girl.
Well, a little girl who we've seen on Santa's lap before says, "What are you doing?" "I'm gonna go get Santa." And she does. She goes, "Because Santa, some of the robbers are over there stealing the money." And Hulk Hogan goes over there and Hulk Hogan's them. And like there are
Santa's a real American.
Fight for the gifts of every man.
At this point, he turned.
He did. He fights these guys, brutally beating them up. And I do love that all of the Christmas-themed decorative things that are used as weapons against Hulk Hogan in this film, in particular, ubiquitous styrofoam candy canes that everyone's like, "I'm gonna hit you over the head with this." I mean, charitably, they're clear plastic. They're hollow plastic.
Yeah.
Like charitably, maybe they're that. But like it's just like he was blocking a candy cane shot and then punch, pick up and throw.
They
like
should
4
have
times
had
in this movie.
the kids waiting in steel chairs. I thought he should have gotten hit with a steel chair.
Mm-hmm.
Or a businessman who had a very brightly covered briefcase. I guess Money in the Bank wasn't a thing yet. But
I'm grossly disappointed by.
No 12-inch TVs.
But no big boot, no leg drop.
No, not in the entire film.
You have a wrestler in your picture and there are fight scenes and you don't have them do their signature moves. What are you doing, John Pawlowski, who I am assuming directed this movie and no other films?
Now we're looking it up.
Now we look up John Pawlowski.
I can't believe we didn't do this before filming. This warranted such research.
But anyway, the crowd goes wild because he thwarted a robbery of $12 and 78 pennies. And you know what they could have done, Kate? Very easily. They could have filled this glass bubble thing with, I mean, I'm assuming you have the budget to go down to the bank and withdraw $200 in dollars and fill the bubble with that. And then afterwards you can go and take it back to the bank and redeposit it. You basically be renting it for a bit. But they didn't do that. They specifically said, let's have this glass bubble have no money in it, and these robbers try and steal it, which I guess could be funny, but why do we care that Santa beat up these guys who were stealing $12?
I think it's the spectacle of Santa beating somebody up more than it is the robbery itself.
I don't know. The robbery, just let him go.
He should have done a leg drop.
He should have done a leg drop. That's for sure.
Like there were so many opportunities to acknowledge that he's a wrestler in this with like a way, because nobody's going to see this movie that isn't a wrestling fan. So lean into it, man. It's kind of like how last week we were talking about there was no like Lindsay Lohan, Mean Girls references, and that like sad. I cannot find anything on John
Pawlowski. There you go. So here's the deal. Everyone wants to know about Santa with muscles. He gets interviewed. at some point. Oh, that's the next
Um,
day. He drives away on Lenny's moped because Lenny tries at the mall, goes to the mall ATM with Blake Thorne's card, and this ATM requires you to have a thumbprint ID, which is not something they required at ATMs in 1996. I know this because they don't require it in 2022. So it's a completely futuristic alternate dimension where thumbprint technology.
Because he's so rich, he had like
but it's not like it's his own bank and he came up with it himself.
That's very true.
There are no thumbprint scanners at any ATMs, no matter what you're trying to withdraw. Anyway, but he gets very upset because he can't withdraw all the money.
Okay, this is really important, so I'm sorry to have to interrupt. John Pawlowski has directed other stuff, and it is everything you would have thought someone who directed this movie would have done. There are other Christmas movies. There are other, I can't even call them B level, like Q level action movies. And there's like The Cop Dog, A Golden Christmas, which would be an Air Bud spinoff, Christmas Mail, and then there's like The Contract Killer. It's exactly what you would have assumed. The Shoplifting Pack, Stealing in Suburbia. This is exactly where you thought this guy's career would go if you thought it was going to continue at all after. So just really good stuff. We can continue.
But there's no need, really.
To your point, fight scenes, we don't get a leg drop. We don't even get New Japan Hulk Hogan, certainly.
No.
And I will say the ass kicking does feel disproportionate to the crime, to your point.
Yeah.
Like stealing $12, you probably shouldn't be like assaulted.
No.
I'm also so confused. We'll get to it, but like the cops seem much more concerned about Blake Thorne speeding than they do about the mad scientist who lives on a hill. There's no authority figure trying to stop them from taking over the town, but we'll get into that. But like they really followed this high-speed chase. They really saw it through to the point where he took on a different personality.
They were stealing money that was supposed to be for this orphanage, and Santa finds out about it and says, I think they need me. Let's go to this orphanage. And Lenny doesn't want to take him, but like he just does on the back of his moped.
Yep.
Hey, no, your sleigh's in the shop. All the reindeers, they got the reindeer flu. So come on with me on my moped and we'll go over there. And
he does say, if I'm Santa, shouldn't I have a sleigh?
Yeah. And he's like, no, the sleigh's in the shop. You have bad brakes. Anyway, so they drive over to this orphanage. So this is where we need to stop, and like, because there's been scenes intercut with all this stuff of the establishment of the bad guys. I can't remember the name of the main henchman, the guy in the lab coat, Dr. something. But he's the guy who's also Lenny's bookie for some reason. We never know what Lenny owes him money for.
We sure don't.
But there's a very expansive villain compound. And this Dr. Labcoat guy is Dr. Villain. Dr. Villain is leading the interrogation of a man who's being held upside down by his ankles, who's been tied upside down by his ankles, and being interrogated by a small tube TV, which has on the face of it Ed Begley Jr., who of course we all know from this show from Transylvania 65000.
Of course.
And he's the villain. He's the mad scientist. Dr. Ebner Frost. And Dr. Ebner Frost is a germaphobe, which is why he won't go outside. But he's like, yes, so you're going to sell me your shoe store, aren't you, Mr. Ruffini? No, I'm not going to sell you my shoe store. upside down, Mr. Ruffini says, like, well then, I hope you enjoy my associates. And out comes a guy in a pith helmet. This is Dr. Flint, the world's foremost evil archaeologist. I'm like, why do you have an archaeologist? I like to torture this guy. Like, don't be alarmed by the fact that they've all been kicked out of the foremost universities for being evil. And so Dr. Dr. Flint comes up and uses one of those little brushes they use to clear away fossils, and he brushes the guy's face, and he goes, "You're going to be an excellent fossil," and he goes away. Oh yes, and chemistry expert, Dr. Vile, and he's got a little thing on his back and a little squirty deal. And he's like, a lot of people don't like the smell of methane, but I think it's nature's perfume, and squirts methane in his face. Okay, fine. These two guys. Also, Lady Electro. I don't remember what her friggin' name was, but they all have weird little pun names.
Dr. Watt.
Dr. Watt. That's right, Dr. Watt. And she's got a very dramatic bob and little sunglasses, and she's got electro gloves, and she's gonna like electrocute him. This guy eventually agrees to sell his shoe store to Dr. Ebner Frost. And Dr. was like, yes. Now there's only one more place we have to get. It's the orphanage. And he crosses off a little square on this map that he has. So he has to get all the properties in this neighborhood.
Alex, so why didn't he have an evil real estate lawyer?
There you go.
Like, why didn't you? We went so far out of the way to create an evil science plot that just to buy out stores.
He sends Dr. Villain Labcoat to
Dr.
go
Blight,
talk to
Dr. Villain Labcoat.
Blight. There you go. Thank you. I knew it was a B. But I
like Dr. Villain Labcoat better.
Dr. Villain Labcoat. Dr. Villain Labcoat.
Dr. Villain Labcoat.
It's pronounced Villain. Dr. Villain Labcoat.
My God.
Yeah, I didn't go to 7 years of medieval med school to be called Mr. Villain. He comes in. And he's talking, and he's hitting on the woman who's running things, Leslie, who runs the orphanage. And she's like, and she says very pointedly, "Go away. We don't ever want to see you again. Get out and don't ever come back." She says very pointedly at him. And then she closes the door. This will come in handy, I guess, later for some reason. And so they hook a chain to the back of their ice cream truck, which is their villain transportation. And they took the chain to a statue and then pulled the statue into the street to do something bad with the statue. I don't know what that is. But it's okay because they can't drive away because Hulk Hogan is there. Blake Thorne is there, and he grabs the chain. And they are driving away at a great. The pedal is to the metal, and Hulk Hogan is standing there holding the chain, and they can't go anywhere. And then they see that who it is like, "Oh, Merry Christmas, Santa!" Like, okay, and then he lets go of the chain, and they drive away anyway. But he's saved the statue. Although the head of the statue broke off. It's really too bad. But he goes in and he's still dressed as Santa. He's still got the beard and everything. He's Santa. And this is where he meets Leslie. And I don't remember. There's another guy. He's the caretaker for the church who also helps with the orphanage.
Yes.
is played by Garrett Morris. I can't remember the name of the character. And they meet the three kids: Elizabeth, the little blonde girl who wrote the letter at the beginning; Taylor, the boy who's seems to be severely depressed about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, played by Mila Kunis, who is the best actor in the entire film. And I don't mean like is the best actor, meaning Mila Kunis, is a great actor. I'm saying this is the best performance in the film by far,
Yes.
given by Mila Kunis, who I think is in her first movie she's ever done. Like she's just very natural at it and is very good at it.
I gotta wonder, like, did the casting director from that 70s show go, I gotta get the guy and the gal from Santa with Muscles?
I don't know if it was the same casting director or something, or the assistant casting director for that 70s show was the casting director for this, and was like, "Hey, come on in. I think you'd be perfect for these roles." I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Don Stark and Mila Kunis, who was only 14 when she landed that 70s show, kind of famously.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Morris's name is Clayton.
Clayton.
But yeah, they just taken
right
children and Santas.
Crucially, there are 3 children at this orphanage. This orphanage in a rundown old church has 3 children living in it. And I think that may be why you have a lack of funding.
No, they justify that, though. They say that they tried to move the rest of the kids because they knew that the evil scientist was going to come take over their space. So they were trying to place kids as fast as they could, which seems very healthy, because then the one kid goes, "We're the leftovers," and then gets up from the dinner table and walks away. So they're trying to preemptively rush placing children in homes, and these are the 3 that are left because they know the evil scientist is going to come and take over their property.
So a lot of those kids got sexually abused. That sucks.
Yeah.
Like if you're rushing to put them, hey, we'd like a child. We got to do a background check on you first. Oh, actually, right now, no time for background checks.
Yeah, it's not a dog
Here's
adoption
all these
event.
children you'd
It's
like.
No. Children.
No, some of these children were horribly traumatized by the time where a mad scientist forced them out of the orphanage, and the orphanage didn't have time to run background checks, so they were placed with horribly abusive families.
I've never wanted a sequel of such a terrible movie so much in my life. Like, I'm dying to know about those kids so bad.
Oh, honestly, I'm sorry, but my first thought was like, if you're rushing to place children with homes,
it'd be completely unethical. Yeah.
No, don't do that. There's a reason why that takes a long time.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I did not catch that detail. I just thought it was an orphanage for 3 kids, because it also felt like there wasn't a lot of room for more than 3 kids in that small building.
Correct.
Anyway.
Yes.
So the kids accepted as Santa, and Leslie plays along. Clayton plays along. We don't have any. Hey, Santa, sure. You want to stay the night? Yeah, not a problem. I mean, you are the Santa with muscles from the news, so you must be cool.
No, the interview didn't happen yet.
Until the next day, you're right.
The next day. So it's just a stranger that fought off someone to save an already broken statue.
Yes. Good. Very good. And so they get given pajamas. Lenny is wearing a lamb costume, and says, "Am I a bunny? Am I a sheep? Which of these 2 things?" is a line that he says. Which one of these 2 things? You are obviously a sheep, sir.
Yes.
But
also, you were just an elf, so maybe get off like the high horse about it.
Yeah, and then Blake Thorne has to wear. He's like, "Wait, if my beard was fake," because he takes it off. How am I Santa? And I forget what Lenny tells him, but he comes up with an excuse the next morning of why he doesn't have a beard. But so Oh yeah, because Blake Thorne is wearing an old shepherd costume from a nativity play, I guess. But they go to sleep and they wake up the next morning and they're going to breakfast, and in walks Blake Thorne in the Santa outfit, but without the beard. And Lenny's like, "Hey, you're not wearing the head hooga haga." And it's like, "Oh yeah, well Mrs. Claus says it tickles, so I just wear it for deliveries," says Hulk Hogan, which is a good excuse,
A good cover.
but also, like, if you can think on your feet that fast, figure out what your name is. Figure out to look for a wallet, an ID. I don't know.
Contact a single news station. This is where
yeah.
we get into the same issue
Right.
as the Lindsay Lohan
Right.
movie last.
So then, overnight, apparently, Mila Kunis as Sarah has seamstressed him a costume that is sleeveless because he's got muscles.
Sarah with muscles.
And when it's a sleeveless thing. And he's got muscles. When he goes out and does the interview with the lady from the news channel, he's wearing the fake beard again, which is good because if he wasn't, then somebody would have been like, "That's Blake Thorne." Oh, I forgot. At breakfast, there's a thing of his cereal, Blake Thorne's cereal, sitting there at the breakfast table. And Leslie goes, "You know what? For some reason, you remind me of somebody. I'm not sure. I can't quite put my finger on it." And then Lenny takes and he shakes all the cereal out onto his pancakes. I go, "Oh, if you haven't tried them like this, it's the best." And then he crushes up the box with Blake Thorne's picture on it, and he says, "I'm going to recycle this." And then he watches as Hulk Hogan takes a drink of his orange juice, and he's got a thumbprint on it. It's like, I'm gonna use the thumbprint because Lenny's definitely the type of guy who would think of this. I'm gonna use the thumbprint from that glass to be able to fool the ATM.
If you saved a hero's life and he was a multi-millionaire, do you think maybe telling him the truth and saving his life might get you rewarded a little bit more in the long run?
I mean, honestly, Lenny's pretty smart about that because Blake Thorne is the kind of guy who would not give a reward to anybody if Blake Thorne found out who he was.
Yeah, I guess.
Other millionaires, perhaps.
I mean, he's nice to all the people that work for him, other than trying to beat him up, but they seem like they have a good relationship. Seems like a voluntary thing.
I mean, it feels very Stockholmy to me. It does. But anyway, so later we see Lenny go and try and use the thumbprint. Like, he pushes the glass. Like, he doesn't lift it with a piece of tape like they do in the movies. He just pushes the glass against the thumbprint reader and goes, Mr. Thorne, this is your right thumbprint. Please do your left thumbprint." And he's like, no. But there's the interview he's Santa with muscles, the interview with the news station. Nobody, there's
no idea how they found out, but they need an interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
All he's done was save a broken statue, but the whole town knows.
No, it was because of the beating up everybody at the mall. There were all these pictures that were in the newspaper of people who were there.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's the biggest
big
story in the history of Lakeville. Is the one time a Santa beat up two robbers who were trying to steal $13.
That actually, as someone who hails from a small town, that probably would be very big news. All right, I'll accept it. I'll accept it.
Did you hear?
Oh my goodness!
Santa beat up two guys.
I was walking by the Cinnabon, and what do I turn to my right, and I just see Santa.
There was actually a scene where two Linda and Sheila types looked at each other as Santa was driving away, and they're like, "Oh my god!"
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. So there's more stuff that happens in this middle ground of the movie. None more explicable than Santa finding Elizabeth sad in the church and them singing a song together. And she doesn't remember her mom, but she remembers her mom must have sang it to her, because how else would she know the song? But they sing it together. Like, Leslie always says there are fairies that live in the windows of this church, and people come from miles around to see them, but they only come out if you sing the song exactly right or something. And they sing it really badly, and then the windows turn from clear to opaque. They don't glow. They don't like flicker. Nobody did anything in post.
No.
They just made the light outside go from bright to cloudy, and they thought that was enough to be like, oh, there's fairies
Christmas
in the
magic.
windows.
Yeah.
We
We also see this is where the elf and the evil scientist convene, right? He's at isn't that when he's at the ATM, and then
yes,
Dr.
the evil scientist, yeah,
Villain Man,
Dr. Verlaine Labcoat,
yes,
who says you're going to help us get that orphanage, Lenny. Oh, we're going to get you or something. He doesn't want to, because he's having his heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Of course.
So he wants to help the kids, but he's in a bind. He owes the villain's henchman $50 or more than $50, because he already got $50 from the. I don't know. He owes him a lot of money. And so he's got
maybe as much as $75.
$75 U.S. American.
U.S.
They also
American.
find out where there's the catacombs.
Yeah.
Under the church, there's these catacombs, and then there's a vault down there. There's a vault? Yeah. Hey, the kids use the catacombs as a clubhouse. There are literally dead, decomposing bodies in little in the catacombs, and there's like 2 chairs, and they're like, it's our clubhouse.
We also get a fight scene between Hulk Hogan. He comes back. Dr. Villain Labcoat comes back in his ice cream truck, and Hulk Hogan just no-selling him. I was like, he looks better than Hulk Hogan does in this fight scene. This was terrible. He sold better.
No, the guy does a full-on spinning back kicks. The stuntman for Dr. Verlaine is a hell of a martial artist, and no, it just completely no-sells him. Then there's I can't remember when this is. There's also a fight scene at the top of the tower.
And the guy that's a little bit later, but yeah.
But anyway, there's a vault in the clubhouse catacombs, and we figured out 3 of the numbers, they say, and each kid does the 3 numbers that they figured out. We can't figure out the 4th one, and then Hulk Hogan knows it. He just knows what it is and does it, and it's not like he can remember, because there was like it's this birth date or something. It's he just does it, and they open it up, and inside, and Sarah Mila Kunis knows this. She says, "Oh, these are all they're crystals, quartz crystals with electricity inside them." And I'm like,
I gotta say, it's such a weird visual to see Hulk Hogan, who also knows something's going on at the mansion at this point. He's like picked up on there's something more than property stuff. He's also learning rules along the way, like all the rules that he had. He's finding out that there's Santa rules, and to follow them, one of the snot-nosed kids is trying to come with him for his adventures, but he's too young right now. But the visual of Hulk Hogan dressed as Santa Claus with a sleeveless suit, with children in the catacombs and electricity crystals. I cannot believe that out of context, this has not gone viral on several podcasts. It is such a weird, you must have been on drugs scene if you don't know the rest of the context of the movie. And the context isn't much better in reality, but out of context, the visual is truly incredible.
in for the sake of brevity, um, there they so yeah, there's a fight scene. Dr. Blight comes back and is trying to muscle his way into the place, and Blake Thorne Santa Claus chases him up to the top of the tower in the church, and beats him up, like beats him pretty good. But there's one of those Santas that kind of like animatronically does this, and for some reason that Santa does this in a way that knocks Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan has never sold for anybody in his life as much as he's sold and bumped for fake animatronic Santa. That Santa on Santa violence, man, that'll get you. And he falls out of the thing but lands safely in a garbage truck passing by, because of course that's what happens.
Also, I can't stress enough, not a single policeman, not a mayor, not an authority figure that's overseeing the mass murders, the monopoly that's happening in this town. And he just shows up with a pickaxe.
Right.
Just shows up with a pickaxe. And nobody calls the cops at any point in this. Like nobody. No. Maybe your funding isn't great for your orphanage because you're an idiot. You have a millionaire that you don't recognize sitting in front of you who's on your cereal box. You've never called the cops once in your life. But yes, it escalates up into the bell tower, and Hulk Hogan sells harder for animatronic Santa than. Also, I'm not sure why you put an animatronic Santa all the way up there, but but he falls into the garbage truck.
Yep. And so then he realizes who he is, because the one way to cure amnesia is to bonk your head a different way.
Bump it back. Which, again, inconsistent with the last movie, because Lindsay Lohan bumped her head like 64 times.
Oh, yeah. So totally fine. Falls in a well, eyes go cross, gets kicked by a mule to go back to normal. I don't know.
Yep.
So anyway, he knows who he is. And he wakes up in his own bed thinking it's a dream, but he gets out of bed and he's wearing the Santa costume. His butler comes in and is like, "Oh, yes, hello. Mr. Thorne, it's good to see you up and about again. A sanitation worker found you in his truck and, recognizing your picture from all of your products, brought you back here." And I was like, so the one guy in town who knows who the millionaire is the garbage man? Awesome. Unseen garbage man, never actually appears on the film, but
and has the thought to do something about it.
Right. Yeah. So he calls Leslie, right? But he's not actually calling Leslie. Somebody has thought ahead to tap the phone and redirect it to the villain compound, where a recording is being played of Leslie telling Dr. Villain Labcoat, "Go away. We don't want you here. Never come back again." And Blake Thorne, because he's an idiot, falls for it.
Yes.
And he's just going to go back to his normal humdrum life, not being friends with orphans, until Lenny calls him and tells him, "Everybody's here. They're going to take over the orphanage and burn it to the ground after they get all their magic crystals out of the ground over here." And he's like, "All right. Suit up, everybody. We're going on a rescue mission." And all of his paintball buddies and friends, his staff members, go on a high-speed chase with the police again in order to get there. 2 bottles of salad dressing with no calories, only 3 calories per serving, per bottle, I think, are dumped out of the back of his van. And because of that little tiny 2 bottles of salad dressing, the bunch of cop cars spin out of control.
Right.
Also, they get stuck on a bridge between Clint Howard's cop car and another cop car, and that other cop car has a bazooka.
Of course.
So the guy gets out of the car with a bazooka to stop a high-speed chase, and that's it, mind you. Not somebody who's like been murdering people all over. This is not a Grand Theft Auto situation.
Correct.
At most, this guy's got 2 out of 5 stars from the cops. And the guy shoots a bazooka, and because he's Hulk Hogan dodges it he just flicks the steering wheel a little bit to the left, and the thing goes right past him and blows up Clint Howard's cop car. Comically so, I suppose. Hulk Hogan gets to the orphanage, which has been overrun by bad guys, and has to deal with them one at a time. There's another villain that's there now. It is Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yeah, it is.
It is Brother Brudeye. It is the disciple. It is Hulk Hogan's real life best friend, Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
An evil lab assistant, Brutus the Barber.
He's an evil lab assistant. He's wearing a lab coat, but he's also got his hair tied back dramatically into a samurai ponytail, while also wearing a Fu Manchu mustache. He is an Asian stereotype henchman, but they can't decide what country he's from in Asia, because he's got the hair and the facial hair don't match, and also he does sumo stomping. It is somehow, in a movie that is this bad, still out of place in its racism. Like, yes. I don't understand why. Like, oh, hey, you know what we need? It's either this. You know what we need? An Asian stereotype henchman. And Hulk Hogan says, I know who would be perfect for that. Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Or Hulk Hogan said, you're going to give a part to my friend Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And somebody said, who can we have Brutus the Barber Beefcake play? I know, an Asian stereotype henchman. Neither one of those things is optimal, I would argue.
I would say it was probably the first one, and they wanted to cast somebody who's Asian, and then Hulk Hogan was like, not today, brother. You're casting my friend.
Yeah. So he's able to fight off the methane guy by who's wearing a full hazmat suit, by stiffing the methane hose into the suit and blowing up like a balloon, so he's in there with all the methane gas. And he kind of like falls over laughing because it's laughing methane gas. And he's able to defeat Electro Lady after defeating Brutus the Barber Beefcake in the most comical way possible, by like stomping on a church pew that like comes up on the other end and hits him under the chin. One move, that's it. Kind of how the disciple fared in all of his stuff in NWO. But then he's able to only beat the Electric Lady because Lenny dumps a bucket of water on her from a higher elevation in the church, instantly killing her. I mean, it doesn't, but it would. It certainly electrocutes her enough that she's knocked out. Mr. Flint, the archaeologist, I would guess we need him because he's going to be the one to extricate all of the crystals in there. But anyway, he's using some kind of drill to get into the vault. And just as he gets into the vault, he's in there, and Ed Begley Jr., the Dr. Frost, runs in there. They knock out the Dr. Flint by slashing the door against him accidentally several times as they open it to run into the thing. So he's knocked out. They get rid of all of them. Now, I've saved this last reveal for the end, even though they did it earlier in the movie, because it is so preposterous. It takes Clayton 3/4 of the movie to explain this to Blake Thorne. Blake Thorne grew up in the orphanage. He was an orphan who was then adopted by a very rich family, which happens only in movies.
Of course.
And his best friend while at the orphanage was Dr. Ebner Frost. I mean, he wasn't a doctor at the time because he was also a child, but Ebner Frost. And so he calls him Ebby when he meets. Like, Blake, is that you? Blake Tarachevsky, because they changed his name to Blake Thorne because Tarachevsky didn't sound so good on a cereal box. So that's why Ebner doesn't know who he is, even though he looked whatever. They haven't seen each other since they were 10, but they were always enemies at the time, and now they're enemies again. And so Dr. Ebner Frost fights off Hulk Hogan by swinging some pickaxe near some explodey crystals, and they explode enough crystals that the entire place is going to blow, and they run away up to the top, and they get outside, and the whole place explodes. No more church, no more orphanage, no more crystals. Is it ever explained exactly what he's going to do with the crystals when he gets them?
I don't think so. And I also just want to keep in mind that Dr. Villain Labcoat is being flirted with by.
Oh yeah,
that she's this key distraction to
yes,
him.
right. It's a wonderful wrestling distraction. He's distracted by the pretty
Yes,
girl,
of
and
course.
then all the children shove him into a deep freezer,
Mhm.
which you would have at this place, and so then he gets deep frozen.
Never really explained what the deal with the crystals is. Never explained why they
Mm-mm.
didn't go there first, if that's
No,
the issue, I think.
no.
Um,
But so there's a lot of like good-natured 90s, hey, the villain's lost, let's make bad jokes at their expense. Ha 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 ha. Right, everybody. And then they go, well, at least we got rid of all the bad guys, and they're going to go to jail for a long time, but now there's nowhere for us to go. um ah I can think of one place that could definitely use some new something. Um, the synopsis on Wikipedia says that at the end, Blake Thorne, because there is no orphanage, it exploded, volunteers his own mansion to be the new orphanage. That is not true. Somebody needs to go into Wikipedia and edit that.
it's gonna be
Because
us. Nobody else
not,
cares about this.
no,
We're gonna do it.
nobody else cares about it, but it's not going to be me. I'm not going to do that.
I'm doing it.
Uh,
I'm doing it.
I want you to do it
From a point of pride.
I want you to do it, and I want you to send me the screenshot of you doing it. He volunteers the villain's old compound to be the new orphanage. They placed all the kids with families except for 3 of them. And the final thing in the movie is them running around. There's, I don't know, 4, 5 dozen orphans running around the grounds of this old compound as Garrett Morris Clayton mows the lawn driving a Rafsma lawnmower because they blocked out C at the beginning and the N at the end. They could have blacked out the whole thing and just made a black bar on it, made it look like a racing stripe, but they blocked out the C in the end to make it him driving a Rafsma lawnmower, which is so odd. But there are a lot more orphans in town, and I think it's because of all the people that died during the high-speed chases. And so all these kids are now orphans because the cops have bazookas. Lord knows you could, like, their unseen number of mistimed shooting incidents.
Look,
All these people are
you
dead.
steal $12, you get your ass kicked. Like, this is
right.
not.
That's right.
I would say too, probably a lot of the kids ran away from their adopted parents because they were rushed to placement
horribly abused. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here's
what they could have easily done. There are only 3 of these. He hasn't met any of the other kids, right? At this point, I did not know that there even were other kids because I missed that detail.
How could you miss it?
3 of them, and he's formed a serious bond with all of them. Okay. We didn't get the obvious ending of the movie where will we go now? Don't worry about that. We're all going back to my place. I have a giant mansion, as many bedrooms as you could possibly. Everyone's got their own bedroom. And Leslie, you're welcome to come visit anytime you like. And the final shot of the movie isn't the big villain compound with 70 kids. It's Garrett, new head gardener of this whole group of people. He's been promoted. He works for Blake Thorne now. And also Leslie coming over for dinner, and he kisses her hand, and we can tell, oh, they're going to have a new mom as well as a new dad. And here's these kids. They all live together. They're adoptive brothers and sisters. They don't do that. They just have him, no, I'm going to pawn you off on this other thing. You know, it's this other place over there. That thing. I'll see you when I see you. But they look
and previously a hellscape too. Like,
right.
just,
oh, yeah. But they look through a telescope. And the telescope is pointed directly down the hill at the prison where all of the villains are dressed in old-timey striped prison outfits on a chain gang breaking rocks in the yard of the prison. But unless this last scene is set sometime far into the future, which it does not appear to be because everyone's still wearing Santa hats, that was the fastest trial in the history of the justice system. Because what are they doing in prison wearing prison outfits? They haven't been arraigned yet. It looks like it's the same day.
I don't know if they have like a traditional government.
No, you're as we've decided,
yeah,
also
there can't. It's not like there's a mayor.
Yeah, this is a fake we're in the multiverse now.
Yeah, it's lawless. It's the Wild West out there.
I cannot also we just skip over it. Hulk Hogan is a terrible actor.
So bad.
Like, terrible. Terrible.
Not a single layer added by anything here.
And
not that he had like a lot to work with in his defense, but
there are also like veteran real actors.
Yeah.
Littered all over this movie. And the script is so bad. And also, they know what a stinker they're in. Nobody attempts to rise above it.
No,
you can't. It is so bad. The only one who doesn't know she's not supposed to be trying is Mila Kunis.
Correct.
Because she's a little angel child who has no clue like what she's like. Listen, Mila Kunis, even like 3 or 4 years later, would know she would be on the phone to her agent to get her out of this movie over and over again. It is nobody's trying. It may very well be. I'd have to really think hard to think of a movie that is worse than this movie.
Well, if there is a movie that's worse than this movie, Alex, we'll be sure to cover it here on Get the Flick Out of Here.
That's true. We have others lined up for our Christmas season that are sure to make you go,
oh, it's going to be a run for their money with this one.
What? Yeah, no, there's some bad ones coming up. Nothing could be this bad, guys. Like, I mean, if you want to, I don't know why, but if you want to see absolutely, I feel sure of this, the worst Christmas movie ever made.
Includes.
I'm sure of this.
I've watched a lot of dumb Lifetime and Hallmark ones. This is far worse because even of everything we covered, I would say Transylvania 65000 is probably like maybe the next worst from like a movie standpoint, but that had some silly gags, but the movie itself had fallen apart. Yeah. And then other ones are so bad they end up being entertaining. This was mostly this was a little entertaining for the wrong reasons, but not enough to overcome how like The Room was hysterical for the wrong reasons. This was like
boy. Yeah. So get the flick out of here.
Get it way out.
That's a get out. And we'll see you next week. Well, sure it won't be good, but we'll see you next week for more of these. Still going around praying for my own death December. Get the flick out of here.
RESPECT. Click the subscribe button and find out what it means to me. Nah, that doesn't have a ring to it. But if you like videos about real news stories that are funny, stupid, or weird, subscribe now.